Some rap battles end careers, some destroy reputations. But every once in a while, a clash does something nobody expects. It creates a star. Because before 2015, Bugzy Malone wasn't a household name across the UK. Now, this is where my own story comes into it. I grew up in Manchester, and if I'm being honest, I hadn't really heard much about Bugzy Malone until Chip mentioned his name. That doesn't mean he wasn't putting in work. He already had a following, especially in North Manchester. But where I grew up, the artists everyone was talking about were different. I genuinely thought if anyone from Manchester was going to be the next big thing, it would be someone from South Manchester. Artists like Shifty, Blizzard, Merkdon, Venomous. Those were the names I expected to break through nationally. So when Bugzy Malone became the first Manchester rapper to really explode onto the national stage, I'll be honest, I was surprised. But you've got to give credit where it's due. He took his opportunity and he never looked back.
He kind of fucked up. I wouldn't have done it. Do you get what I'm saying? Me in his position, me in half of his position, wouldn't have acknowledged some up-and-coming rapper.
To understand this story, you have to understand where Chip was in 2015. Years earlier, he'd already achieved what most UK rappers could only dream of. From a teenager in Tottenham to one of the biggest names in British music. MOBO Awards, chart success, hit records. He'd already proved he could make the transition from grime to mainstream. But Chip wasn't satisfied. Like so many artists before him, he had his eyes on something even bigger. America. He signed to T.I.'s Grand Hustle label, packed his bags, and took a chance. And to be fair, it wasn't like nothing came from it. He found himself in rooms with some of the biggest names in music, working alongside artists like Chris Brown, Meek Mill, and Kerry Hilson. For a UK rapper, those opportunities don't come around often. But breaking America is a completely different game, especially when you come from the UK. Eventually, Chip came home. But while he'd been away, the UK hadn't stood still. It had moved on. Grime wasn't just making a comeback, it was becoming the hottest it had been in years. Skepta was entering one of the biggest moments of his career. Stormzy was beginning to emerge. A new generation of artists were demanding attention. The landscape looked completely different to the one Chip had left behind.
I haven't put out music for quite a while. But I'm just getting back into the swing, you know, so I've been heavy in the studio, but the campaign started in January, so.
Now, this is just my opinion. I don't think Chip could have come back, dropped a normal project, and had everyone talking again. The scene had changed. People's attention had shifted. If Chip wanted to remind the country that he was still one of the most dangerous MCs in Britain, he needed more than just another release. He needed a moment. And if there was one thing Chip had always understood, it was this. Nothing gets people talking quite like conflict. Clashing wasn't just something Chip was good at. It was part of who he was. He'd built his reputation on it. He'd embarrassed some of the biggest names in the scene. So if people had forgotten just how dangerous Chip was, he wasn't about to tell them. He was going to show them. And without even realizing it, he was about to give someone else the biggest opportunity of their career.
Don't play with me, and these bars come quick.
Ironically, this story didn't begin with Chip or Bugzy Malone. It started with Tiny Temper. At the start of 2014, Tiny stepped into fire in the booth. During the freestyle, he delivered a line that caught Chip's attention. I left the pizza boys, you thought I won't deliver again. You say you're gonna be around, let's see who is in the end. On its own, it might not have meant much, but Chip saw it differently. He believed Tiny was taking a shot at him, referencing Pizza Boy, the track he'd released with Meek Mill while he was in America. Whether Tiny intended it that way or not, that's how Chip interpreted it. And sometimes, that's all it takes. Now, this is just my opinion. I think Chip had been watching the UK scene closely while he was away. He'd gone to America chasing a bigger dream, but back home, grime was finding its feet again. The energy was different, the scene was buzzing, the culture felt alive. And I wouldn't be surprised if part of him was thinking, I've got unfinished business back home. So when Tiny's freestyle landed, whether it was a genuine diss or simply something Chip believed was aimed at him, it gave him the perfect reason to step back into the conversation. Not with an interview, not with a social media post, but with a fire in the booth of his own. On the surface, it looked like a response to Tiny Temper, but in reality, it became something much bigger. Because during that freestyle, Chip didn't just answer Tiny, he threw the door wide open. He made it clear, if anybody in the UK thought they wanted it, they knew where to find him. He probably expected a response. What he probably didn't expect was who would answer. Because somewhere, 200 miles away, another MC was listening. Bugzy Malone. And for Bugzy, this wasn't just another freestyle. This wasn't just another rapper venting. This was an opportunity. The biggest opportunity of his career. Most artists would have heard Chip's words and carried on with their day. Bugzy didn't. He heard a challenge, and unlike everybody else, he decided to answer it. Looking back now, that decision changed everything. Not just for Chip, not just for Bugzy, but for grime itself. Because what happened next would become one of the biggest clashes the UK had ever seen.
I'm putting it out there right now. I'm putting money on you, fam.
Yeah?
You getting that cosign right now. This kid is an animal.
So Bugzy had accepted Chip's invitation. Now, Chip had to respond. Just days later, he released Pepper Riddim. This wasn't just a reply to Bugzy Malone. This was Chip announcing that he was back. The bars were relentless, the confidence was unmistakable. But one particular line changed everything. Chip referenced Skepta and Devilman's legendary Lord of the Mics clash from 2006. On the surface, it sounded like nothing more than a clever comparison. Almost like Chip was paying homage to one of Grime's greatest clashes. But personally, I've always wondered if there was more to it. Chip is incredibly intelligent when it comes to music. He understands narratives, he understands momentum. And I've always felt he knew mentioning Skepta's name would get people talking. Whether he genuinely wanted Skepta involved or simply understood the domino effect it could create, only Chip knows. But whatever his intentions were, it worked. Then, almost as if the whole scene had exploded at once, a few days later, 2 huge diss tracks landed. Devilman answered Chip, while Bugzy released Relegation Riddim. One reignited an old rivalry, the other took the biggest gamble of the entire clash. For me, Relegation Riddim wasn't just one of the biggest diss tracks of the clash, it was one of the smartest. Because Bugzy didn't just rely on the lyrics, he understood the importance of making a statement. Instead of filming the video in Manchester, he travelled all the way to Tottenham, Chip's own ends. Alongside Big Nasty, after Chip told him to fry in his own grease. He filmed the video right there. That wasn't accidental, that was calculated. Because if Relegation Riddim had been filmed back in Manchester, I'm not convinced it would have had the same impact. People weren't just talking about the bars, they were talking about the audacity.
Sick MCs come from Tottenham and it's a very known area for a lot of other reasons. You get what I'm saying? So the moment you've come to Tottenham with all your 50 brothers that had the time to make that drive and use that petrol.
At 3 in the morning!
At 3 in the morning on the high road, yeah, to come and shoot a video to disrespect me that people know here for the right reasons, like music, yeah, you've made the situation bigger than just the microphone.
Then, just 2 days later, Skepta finally responded. Nasty. And the opening line tells you everything you need to know. Skepta says, "I don't know why Chip mentioned my name." I've always found that line fascinating. It doesn't sound like someone desperate to jump into another clash. It sounds like someone who just realised he'd been pulled back into the ring. And to be fair, I completely understand why Skepta would have been frustrated. Devilman wasn't some random MC looking for attention. He was one of the most dangerous clash MCs in Grime. 9 years earlier, they'd given us one of the greatest Lord of the Mics clashes ever. And let's all be honest, I'm a big Skepta fan, but Devilman won that clash. Now, almost a decade later, Skepta suddenly found himself facing that challenge all over again. All because of one line in Pepper Riddim. Whether Chip planned that, or whether it was simply the consequence of one clever bar, only Chip knows. But I'm actually glad it happened, because without that domino effect, we might never have experienced one of the greatest periods in modern grime. Tiny invited Chip, Chip invited Bugzy, Chip mentioned Skepta, Devilman answered, Skepta answered back. One invitation became another, then another, until the whole grime scene was involved. By this point, I actually think Chip had achieved exactly what he wanted. The whole culture was talking. Every diss track felt like an event. Every upload became breaking news. Everyone was waiting to see who would reply next.
For me, like, it's competition. Like, rap is a competitive sport. Everyone's trying to prove that they're the best. And for me, it's a beautiful thing. As long as it stays in the music and no one tries to take it outside of that, it's healthy.
By this point, I think Chip could sense things were changing. This wasn't just about music anymore. The rivalry was starting to spill beyond the booth and onto the streets. The buzz he'd been looking for had already been created. The whole grime scene was at its full peak. And I think Chip had achieved exactly what he set out to do. So he released The End. Not just as another diss track, but almost as a statement. A way of saying, I've said what I needed to say. I'm done. Personally, I genuinely believe Chip had no intention of replying again after that. But Bugzy wasn't ready to let it end. He kept sending, while Chip kept quiet. 5 months passed. Then, Chip returned with light work. Bugzy reacted almost instantly, not with a diss track, but with a tweet. 5 months later, man took longer than Meek Mill, you know. It was the perfect line for the time. Because 2015 wasn't just a year of Chip versus Bugzy, it was also the year of Drake versus Meek Mill. Everybody got the reference. Bugzy had turned Chip's silence into another talking point. But if there's one thing we've learned about Chip, it's that he rarely lets someone else have the final word. Within the same week, he fired back with Run Out Riddim, and this time, he answered Bugzy's tweet directly. About I took longer than Meek, sonic boom, hold 2 in a week. That's classic Chip. He doesn't argue online, he doesn't explain himself, he replies with music. And just like that, Bugzy went from waiting 5 months to having 2 diss tracks land in the space of a single week. Then came Hat Trick. And for me, this is where you could really see the difference between the two. Chip wasn't just replying anymore, he had Bugzy by the ropes. Bugzy couldn't keep up. Chip was too cold of it. This wasn't somebody learning how to clash. This was somebody showing why he's regarded as one of the greatest MCs this country has ever produced.
Chip or Bugzy Malone, I'm not on no side, but for me, I feel like Chipmunk is the better MC.
You know, Bugsy's come through really, stepped up the level since he's done his fire in the booth. He's brought out a few off sends, and I think that he can swing with Chip.
Me personally, I think Chip managed to do his thing by coming back, like regardless of how long it took. Like people are saying it took long, this tweeting about he took longer than me, but I don't know, at least we come out with fire.
Then 1 month later, Chip drops 96 bars of revenge. And as a genuine grime fan, I remember thinking, how on earth does Bugzy recover from this? This wasn't just another diss track. He wasn't just sending for Bugzy, he was spinning everyone who'd come at him a few months earlier. The wordplay, the delivery, the punchlines, everything was on another level. Bugzy came back with Wasteman, but within hours, Chip responded with Dickhead. He wasn't giving Bugzy a second to breathe. Every time Bugzy dropped, Chip was right there, applying more pressure, refusing to let the momentum swing. Then, the very next day, Bugzy answered again, this time with Zombie Riddim. And that's when I started to realize this wasn't going the way I thought it would. I convinced myself Chip was gonna end Bugzy's career before it had even really begun. Instead, the complete opposite was happening. Bugzy just kept coming back. Every reply made people want to hear what he'd say next. His profile kept growing. His fan base kept growing. He had the whole of Manchester behind him. By this point, I actually think Chip realised something. No matter how convincingly he was winning the clash, every reply was making Bugzy a bigger artist. Every diss raised Bugzy's stock. Every response introduced him to another audience. Chip was winning the battle, but Bugzy's career was taking off. And in my opinion, Chip gave Bugzy the biggest cosign of his career. Because when one of the best clash MCs in the country keeps replying to you, the whole country starts paying attention.
We made history.
Definitely did.
That's what we've done. And he was brave enough to compete. Do you get what I'm saying? And not a lot of people would have turned up to that situation, because I felt the pressure of that situation. I had to compete publicly. And you get that wrong and you get discredited within that situation.
You did feel pressure. That was going to be one of my questions, because obviously Chip's one of the best this country's ever seen.
Without a doubt.
Now, it's 2026. We've had over a decade to look back on one of the greatest clashes in UK rap history. And maybe now we can finally ask the question, who really won this war? When the dust settled, both artists walked away with something. Let's start with Chip. This clash reminded the country exactly who he was. Not just a chart artist, not just a kid behind Oopsie Daisy, but one of the most dangerous MCs this country has ever produced. In the years that followed, he made sure he stayed exactly where he belonged, among the heavyweights of UK music. He won Best Grime Act at the MOBO Awards in 2016, released League of My Own 2, followed by Insomnia alongside Skepta and Young Ads, which peaked at number 3 on the UK albums chart. Then came Snakes and Ladders, another reminder that Chip could still compete with anyone. What makes Chip's career so unique is that not many artists can do what he did. He went from the underground to the mainstream and then back to the underground again without ever losing his credibility. Most artists lose one audience chasing the other. Chip somehow managed to keep both. To this day, he's still regarded as one of the UK's elite lyricists. And in my opinion, the greatest clash MC this country has ever seen. But then, there's Bugzy Malone. Before this clash, he was one of Manchester's best kept secrets. After it, the whole country knew his name. He used that momentum to build one of the biggest careers in UK rap. Every major project he released after the clash reached the UK top 10. He became one of the biggest independent artists in Britain. He broke London's grip on grime and proudly earned the title King of the North.
Self-made. I'm not one of these fucking nerds winning all the awards with the labels and all that shit. Self-made. Done all the business myself. No one can discredit me. Nobody. Paid for my own fucking album last time round. Nearly fucking £500,000 out my own back pocket. People in the industry couldn't believe I was paying for the shit myself.
Then came something nobody really saw coming. Acting. While other UK rappers were landing roles in Top Boy, Bugzy Malone was starring in Guy Ritchie films. The Gentleman, Operation Fortune. That's a completely different level. Then came the business ventures, his own clothing brand, his own fragrance, arena tours. And in 2024, he finally won the MOBO Award for Best Grime Act. The irony is that after everything they'd said to each other, they eventually became friends. In 2017, they met for the very first time at Giggs' Christmas party. A feud that had played out entirely through music ended with a conversation. A few years later, they weren't sending for each other anymore. They were making music together. Notorious. Then, Grown Flex. Two artists who'd once tried to destroy each other, now sharing records together. And maybe that's the perfect ending. Because I think Chip won the battle. I don't think that's controversial. His lyricism, his consistency, his timing were on another level. But I also think every time Chip replied, Bugzy's profile grew. People like me who'd never really paid attention to Bugzy before were suddenly paying attention. And I don't think I was the only one. Looking back now, I think they both won. Chip got the respect, Bugzy got the bag. Chip cemented his legacy as one of the greatest MCs this country has ever produced. Bugzy turned that opportunity into chart success, Hollywood films, businesses, arena tours, and one of the biggest careers ever to come out of Manchester. History remembers winners, but sometimes winning isn't about who had the better bars. Sometimes it's about who walked away with the bigger career. So, did Chip accidentally create Bugzy Malone? Or was Bugzy always destined to become a star, with or without him? I'll let you decide.
Ain't no rappers in the UK doing this shit. They ain't got fountains and that. They're not there yet. Remember, I was the Manchester kid.